Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back, everyone. The custom of this group to go around and say your name. And if you came in late and you're new, just let us know so we can welcome you. My name is Grisha. Jim? That's.
My name is Oswaldo. I'm Jack. I'm Michael. I'm Michael as well. My name is Ray. Larry.
Matthew.
My name is Clint.
I'm Jerry.
My name is Roy.
My name is Harley.
Rob.
John.
Joe.
Tom. Usada Chitta.
My name is Michael.
I'm Brad.
My name is Henry.
I'm Greg.
I'm Joe.
Silas. Brian.
George. Kevin.
Mike.
My name is Joe.
I'm Richard.
Michael.
I'm Al.
David. Peter.
My name is Cass.
Paul.
David.
My name is Ken.
Welcome, everyone. We'll hear from Dharma talk today from our teacher, Dhammachari Danadasa has been practicing with the San Francisco Buddhist Center community since 1993 and was ordained in 2011. His current area of exploration is the cultivation of metta, or loving kindness, as a response to the hatred, discrimination, and bigotry in the world out there. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha describes mindfulness as the direct path to liberation. What is liberation? What is mindfulness? And how does mindfulness lead to liberation? During the month of January, we will be exploring the four spheres of experience described in the Satipatthana Sutta: the body, the heart, the mind, and the teachings of Buddha. We will also explore the relationship between mindfulness and the three jewels of Buddhism: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I'd like to invite you to consider the month of January as a month-long practice period, time to put a bit more intentionality, discipline, and energy into this beautiful and mysterious process of transformation.
Thank you, Grisha. Well, my name is Danadasa, and welcome all. So this is week 3 of a 4-week series, which started on January 8th, where I spoke about the mind and the Sangha. And the Sangha is translated as a spiritual community. And last week I spoke about the heart and the Dharma. And the Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha. And this week I'll be talking about the body and the Buddha. Although there's a good chance that the Buddha might wait till next week. But January 29th, I just created a little placeholder called Bringing It All Together. And the reason I left it kind of open like that is one thing that I like to do is actually get a feel of the group. Kind of take a temperature read, get a sense of what the needs are of this specific community. So, for example, last week, David said something about, participating in one of these gratitude texting groups where he was receiving texts from some other people in this group as well as sending them, just about things that he's grateful for. And last week, David mentioned that, I get this little text. It's a little bump in my positivity. And I feel a little grateful. But there's all this other crazy stuff going on. What do I do with that? And I think this is an incredibly valuable question. So what I'd like to do at the end of this talk like to set aside 5 or 10 minutes and just open it up for any questions or comments about anything that I've covered in the last 2 previous weeks as well as this week. Anything that I've said that has that you'd like to hear more about, anything that I've said that did not make sense or even you disagree with, anything that has resonated with you. And basically whatever I hear from you, I will do my best to sort of weave those questions into my presentation next week. Yeah. Okay, so let's get going. So last week I feel I didn't answer David's question as thoroughly as I would have liked to in retrospect. So that question being, well, there's all this stuff going on in my mind. I like to refer to this as the circus of the mind. It's just constantly chattering away. So I just try and cultivate a little bit of gratitude and right, so what was behind these gratitude text groups was this idea that which one frequently brings to mind becomes the tendency of the mind. So by bringing gratitude to mind, it cultivates the tendency towards bringing gratitude to mind. And when we bring gratitude to mind, we will tend to see the world from that perspective. And I added a second little sentence here, which is about the process of transformation. Transformation arises from the cumulative effect of many small actions. Many small actions. So this process of transformation, it's a bit of a long-term project. Now, if you think about this, really? And part of what's going on is sort of just our cultural conditioning around the quick fix, right? Information at our fingertips. Right, so if you just consider, 10 years ago, we were all not carrying little miniature computers in our pockets with instant connection, instant access to everything. At least that's the way it feels. So this effect of Facebook, YouTube, email, texting, Instagram, Twitter, all of it, the news, everything that's there, ready at our fingertips, the effect of this is a dispersion of our attention. There's just all this stimulation, all this input. And one of the consequences of this is it is a condition which makes it very difficult to actually experience a depth of experience, a depth of mind. It makes it more difficult to actually stay with something, a chosen object of our attention. So in this case, it's gratitude. To actually stay with that. So we have to constantly keep coming back to it over and over and over again. And this will have an effect, but it is a slow effect because this is a very small action, but it does have an effect. So transformation, what makes transformation possible? So this is going back to last week about the Dharma. And this here is the most sort of traditional description of the Dharma in its most pith instructions, I shall say. So I've called this Ways of Seeing That Lead to Freedom. And the first bullet up there is called... it's a translation of Pratichyat Samutpada, and it's often translated as conditioned co-production, cause and effect, and I've translated here as dependent co-arising. It's actually very simple. It's just actions have consequences. Very simple. All things arise dependent upon conditions. Right? So this is incredibly important. And actually, it's very easy to kind of miss the importance of it because it is so simple to understand. So we're going to get into this. So the second one, unsatisfactoriness, suffering, stress, and anxiety. This is a translation for dukkha. And when we have this approach to getting happiness of I must have, I must not have. And this is a way that we are in the world. We want to control our experience. I must have this, I must not have this. And when we do that, we will discover very quickly that this is not a reliable strategy for getting happiness. It will ultimately result in stress and anxiety, unsatisfactoriness, and suffering. And I think this is pretty clear. If you just look at your experience you don't have to look that deeply. You will see this. The next one, impermanence. It's very straightforward. All things change. Thank goodness for that. Because if that weren't true, there would be no possibility of transformation. It just simply would not be possible. So all things change. Now, impermanence, tied with the first one, dependent co-arising, when you put these side by side. So all things change. But the change isn't just completely chaotic and random. Right? It's not like an apple will suddenly turn into an orange. Right? That's just ridiculous. So again, if you look closely at the nature of change, you will notice that change actually follows particular rules, particular laws. Change unfolds in actually quite a predictable way. Right? So this is what dependent co-arising is pointing at. So in terms of impermanence, all things change. When we notice that we are experiencing stress and anxiety, and we can see this with a clear mind, then we can begin to explore, well, what are the causes of this stress and anxiety? And when we can begin to see that clearly, then we can begin to undo those causes and conditions. Similarly, we can also begin to have an understanding of the causes and conditions which result in peace and joy and love, spaciousness, kindness, patience, and we can cultivate those things. Dependent co-arising impermanence. The last one is actually the most difficult one to wrap our minds around, which is no self, this doctrine of no self. And that's a translation of anatta. So simply put, no self is all things change, including the story of me. All things change, including the story of me. So this teaching of anatta, it's helpful to actually approach this teaching gradually. You don't want to just start with, well, I've got no self, nothing matters. There's a lot of ways to misunderstand and misapply this teaching. But I'll just start quite gradually around, when I spoke about the story of me. So this story of me, it perhaps may include, I'm not lovable, there's something wrong with me, nobody likes me, I'm a fraud, whatever it may be. And these stories that are so deeply ingrained, and they arise from our childhood, our family upbringing, is very deeply ingrained, that these too are subject to change. Thank goodness for that. It's all about transformation. Okay? So now I'd like to actually approach this doctrine of no self from the perspective of the body. So this leads us into our topic for this week of the body and perhaps the Buddha. Time permitting. So the body. Yeah, so this Satipatthana Sutta, this teaching of the Buddha, as I said in the first week, all mindfulness training flows from this particular sutta. And the Buddha describes spheres of experience that are really important to pay attention to. And I'm primarily going to be talking about the first three, which are the body. The second is what is translated, it's Vedana, and this is typically translated and poorly translated as feeling and mind. So I prefer to just talk about, rather than talking about Vedana or feeling, I just speak of the heart. So these three spheres of experience, the body, the heart, the mind. These spheres of experience are deeply interconnected. Deeply interconnected. And the body is actually the first of these spheres that is described by the Buddha. And there's a very good reason that the body is the very first object of attention that the Buddha describes, because it's really, really important. So, certainly in our modern time, there's just so much mental stimulation, mental input, that it's so easy to sort of get stuck in the head. This circus of the mind is just constantly churning away. And we can actually lose track of what's going on in our hearts and what's going on in our bodies. And it's very interesting, even this question of what's going on in our hearts. I've been in dialogue with others where I'll just do this very simple meditative reflection of just notice what's happening in your heart. And it's quite amazing to me that there will always be a number of people in the room who don't even know how to approach that question. Like, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. Even the act of really turning our attention towards what's going on in our hearts can feel quite foreign. So our hearts, our bodies, our minds. Our bodies, interestingly, our bodies are it's an amazing barometer, our bodies, of what's going on in our hearts and what's going on in our minds. So, for example, let's say we're angry, frustrated, bent out of shape, whatever it may be. Well, it is not possible to be angry and simultaneously have a body that's open and relaxed. It's just not possible. I don't know. So anybody in the room ever get angry with a relaxed and open body? Okay, good. Nobody's been. Because when we get angry, when we get upset, the mind, the heart clenches. I experience warmth, heat, hotness, like it's too hot in the kitchen. And the body just kind of tenses up. The heart tenses up, the body tenses up, and the mind tenses up. Everything just tenses up. Similarly, you just imagine doing something that you love, your favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. Perhaps it's listening to music, painting, drawing, having a meaningful conversation with a good friend, lying on the beach in Hawaii, whatever it may be. And if you just bring this experience to mind, just notice your body and your heart and your mind. Just, there's just this opening. And the body just opens. So the body is this incredible mirror of our emotional and mental states. And the body is really fantastic because we have access to our bodies in a way that is perhaps more direct than access to our emotional states and our mental states. So our bodies, amazingly, is, in meditation, a very a very tried and true object of meditation is the breath. Because the breath is in the body. It's our breathing body. Our breath is always in the present moment. And we can notice the quality of our breath, which then indicates the quality of our hearts and minds. And then we can do this simple act of deep breathing. Now just taking 3 to 5 deep breaths, that's all, 3 to 5 deep breaths, has been scientifically proven to lower your blood pressure, reduce the levels of cortisol in your system. Cortisol is a stress hormone. And it just relaxes your body. This has been scientifically proven. So just simply by pausing and taking 3 to 5 deep intentional breaths, you can feel it. Your body just relaxes, just opens up. And that has a positive effect upon your heart. That causes your heart to also open up and relax a bit. And your mind as well to open up and relax a bit. So not only does the body mirror our emotional and mental states, we can also condition our emotional and mental states using our bodies, using our breathing bodies, and using our breath. So it's quite amazing, the body. So we're going to do a little meditational body meditation. Let me say a couple more things about the body. So the body, we can take this term literally, like the flesh and bones body. It's my body, my literal body. And the Tibetan Buddhists, they also like to talk about a wide variety of bodies. So the Tibetans will speak about our emotional bodies. They'll speak about our thought bodies. And they'll also speak about our energy bodies. There's something about these little turns of phrase. They speak about the subtle body. Kind of like that. They also speak about the rainbow body. Kind of like that too. And this is pointing at sort of an energetic body. So our body, it's all energy. Everything is energy. Our hearts are pumping. There's blood. Our emotions, motion, it's energy. Everything we think. We could say that our entire experience is energy. So I'd like to lead us in a little meditation here, just to tune in to the energies in our bodies. So just make yourselves comfortable in your meditation posture. And I'd just like to invite everybody to take 3 deep, intentional breaths. And if you'd like, on the out-breath, even give a little sigh. Just invite your body to relax. Invite your heart to open. Just relax your mind. Now, just let go of that effort. Just notice how that feels to have taken 3 deep breaths. And now, I'd like you to bring your attention to the sound of this bell. Just notice how the sound rises and and gently fades away. Just notice the sensation of sound. Sound is energy. It is molecules moving through the air, vibrating, impinging upon your eardrums, which then creates the sensation of sound. So just notice how this field of vibrating molecules is impinging upon your entire body. And just imagine every cell of your body vibrating with the sound of this bell. Now, just notice how you feel in your body. And notice the emotional tone of your heart. And notice the quality of the thoughts passing through your mind. So in your own time, bring this meditation to a close. That was nice. So body, heart, mind. And it's very valuable to think of practice in terms of broadening our awareness. So when we are all up in the head, thinking. We can bring our bodies. We can expand our awareness to include our bodies. I know quite a few people who have trouble falling asleep because they can't turn their minds off. Minds are just constantly going. So I have a friend who puts on old reruns of Frasier on Netflix and just falls asleep to that. Like, same rerun, over and over and over again. You know? And it's enough to occupy the mind, and the mind's not that interested because it already knows what's going to happen. But it just kind of blots out the chattering of the mind. That's a totally valid way to go to sleep. This path of Buddhist practice, it's actually inviting us as, rather than driving out this with some other thoughts, we can actually begin to broaden our awareness to include our bodies, include our hearts. And last week I spoke about this experience of space. And I think this is a very good way into what's being pointed at by no self. So the body is a doorway into the present moment. So in the first week, I spoke to you about the first 4 dhyānas. Dhyānas can be translated as concentration. And I described to you this process of transitioning or moving from a state of distraction, monkey mind, chattering mind, into a state of concentration. And I also described to you the ways in which that state of concentration, that experience of concentration, deepens. And those were the first 4 dhyānas. And last week, I just mentioned the second set of 4 dhyānas. And here again, I'm just going to mention them. And I'm going to only talk about the first one up there. I'm not going to say anything about the others. So these second set of 4 dhyānas, or states of concentration, are called the 4 formless dhyānas. And it's formless is a translation of the word arupa. I find it much more helpful to think of these 4 formless dhyānas as ways of seeing rather than deeper states of concentration. I think it's much more helpful. These are ways of seeing. And these 4 formless dhyānas, formless ways of seeing, are the sphere of infinite space, the sphere of infinite consciousness, the sphere of no thingness, and the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. So the reason I bring this to your attention is because this here is pointing at something quite mysterious. It's quite profound. And I wrote here, this is a journey into the depths, the unknown, the mysteries. So these words here are actually pointing at our human potential. That however it is that we experience the world right now in our normal state of waking consciousness, there's so much more. There's so much more depth there. So in terms of our ordinary waking consciousness, this chattering mind, this little running commentary about everything that's going on, Pema Chodron, one of my favorite teachers, rather than speaking about an inner critic, she speaks about an inner drill sergeant. We've got that going on. It's very interesting just to ask ourselves this question, what lies beneath the chattering mind? And now it's an invitation into this depth. What lies beneath the chattering mind? And these here are just placeholders into the possibilities. These words infinite. And then these other words, I don't really know what they mean. So it's just here, this is just a placeholder. Our potential is infinite. It's probably not a good place to start. Again, moving into practice, it's helpful to move into practice gradually. So in terms of the first way of seeing, the sphere of infinite space, we can just drop the word infinite. And we can actually just bring this sense of space to our attention. So now we go back to this little exercise we did, and also this description of when we bring something that's a source of stress to mind, we can notice how that feels. And it's a contraction, a constriction. And also in terms of what happens in the mind, I have a friend who likes to speak about the mind having this aperture in front of it. So when we're open and relaxed, the aperture's wide open. We're not even necessarily aware of it. But then when we get angry, frustrated, the aperture just narrows down to a little laser beam and becomes fixated on whatever it is that's causing us stress and anxiety. So the mind also narrows. This laser beam focus. So it's very important when this happens to notice that this is happening And when this happens, a very good thing to do is to pause, to relax, and to open. And a very good way to do that is to just take some deep breaths. So when you're at work and you get that snarky email from your coworker and you're firing off and you're just about to press send, that's a really good time to pause and just relax and open. Because when you're in a more relaxed and open state, you will tend to make better decisions. You will tend to cause less harm to yourself and others. So space, spaciousness. And okay. So we're going to come back to the practice commitments for the week. So there's the gratitude texting groups. So those of you who were not here earlier, what I invited people to do is just to self-organize into groups of kind of 3 to 5 and to form these gratitude texting groups. It's very simple. So actually, who here is participating in this? There's a number of you participating in this, right? And essentially you just gather. So anybody who's interested, who's not in a gratitude texting group and would like to join one, you can just gather in this corner of the room, immediately following our circle, and just exchange cell phone numbers. And it's very simple. All you do is, when you notice something in your experience that causes that you are grateful for, anything, just a hot cup of tea, the sound of the rain, doesn't matter what it is, you just simply text that to the other people in your group. And just notice how this feels. And this is just the process of cultivating gratitude. It's perfuming the mind, developing more positive mental habits. So there's gratitude texting groups. Meditate, that's a very good one. So whatever amount of effort you put into meditation now, you might want to consider just putting in a bit more effort and just noticing how that feels. And a bit more effort, that can mean anything. Really, you have to decide what that means. So I'd like to suggest something around this, a bit more effort, is you can just simply take 3 deep breaths. And that counts. You're meditating. 3 deep breaths. You might want to try this 3 times a day. When you wake up in the morning, take 3 deep breaths. Before you go to bed at night, take 3 deep breaths. And then just choose another time and during the day to do this again. So meditation, here we are cultivating a unification of mind, which is a necessary condition for the cultivation of clear seeing. There's a lot of other things that are going on there, but if you can, put a bit more effort into your meditation practice. And the third suggestion, again, these are all suggestions, is to broaden our awareness. Broaden our awareness and see if we can actually make better choices. And better choices simply means making choices that creates less harm for ourselves and others. It's very simple. So, pause, relax, open. And these are some questions that I like to use as practice slogans. So personally, when I get bent out of shape, I'll do this when I've got my A game on. Pause, relax, open. And I'll just simply ask myself these questions. What am I not seeing? What am I not feeling? And is there something here that I'm avoiding? And I'm just going to assume the answer is yes. So I ask myself the question of, what am I avoiding? And just simply dropping these questions into your mind. You just get curious about what is outside of this fixation, of this aperture that's narrowed down. Broaden out. Just broaden out. Yeah. Okay, so it is now 11:43. So I'd like to open it up to any questions, comments, anything you'd like to hear me speak more about next week. And this isn't quite a Q&A session. It's really a Q session, because I'm not going to answer the questions till next week. And also comments as well. Tom.
So, first of all, thank you so much for enlightening us on all these things. When you talked about impermanence and no permanent self, I think that makes sense because, and I have a question that I'll give you, but I think it makes sense because we probably have all experienced times when we feel capable and competent and joyful and all these things, and then other times we feel fearful and incapable and questioning. And so my question is, how do we pursue those states that we want to get into without falling into the trap of this is what I want, this is what I don't want, right? I mean, it seems this conundrum, and so I think if you could talk about that, it would be helpful.
Yes, indeed.
You can solve that one.
You got 5 minutes? We'll just have a quick chat.
Yeah, sure.
Oswaldo.
When you mentioned your friend that has to listen to Frasier in order to fall asleep, brought to mind something that I heard earlier this week on the radio. I forget where I was tuning into, but it had to do with the experience of an autistic kid that ended up recovering from a lot of his handicap, and the way that his way out was to over and over and over again look at Disney movies, and then some further speculation about the fact that it appears from, I'm no expert of course, but from some of the recent research on autism is that autistic people have too much input, and they apparently, as we grow from childhood, a lot of our synapses connections are snipped off in order to be able to concentrate better on what's going on, and that fails to happen in some people. And that for this particular kid at least, familiarity of the plot and the music that went along with the plot, so there were cues as to what was sad and what was happy and so forth, helped them bridge that gap. But it reminded me a lot of the importance of concentration and of this constant onslaught of information that we have. And I see that being an educator in my students, but in myself all the time too. There's so many things that I can look at just to get information on this trivial fact that turns me off of what I should be doing or what I should be concentrating on. Anyway, I don't think there's any particular question there, but that observation was very interesting to me.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Thank you. David?
I was curious about, we talked about control, and in our lives we think that we can do something and get a certain result. And for instance, if you work hard at your career or do whatever, you got a better chance of getting a new job than doing nothing. Or if you have an intention to go get a carton of milk, 95% of the time you end up with the milk. So it creates a sense of control, but I don't know if we're talking about if you get that career or you get out of the bad relationship, you won't have any lasting happiness. I mean, sometimes it feels better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you, David. What's your name?
Joe.
Joe.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm familiar with a lot of these concepts and stuff, and as you're putting it together the last Sunday for us, I'd be interested in like tips you have on noticing when you're stuck and how to get unstuck. And I was just thinking about a Facebook post I made before I left the house this morning about the march. That was just slightly unskillful.
Good for you.
It wasn't crazy. It was just slightly unskillful. I had a bit of judgment. So yeah, I you've done. You're an experienced practitioner. I'd love to hear some of the tips and tricks.
You bet. Thank you, Joe. What's your name?
Greg.
Greg.
I tend to be somewhat literal, and you'd said that the body was the window to
The doorway to the present moment.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just wonder if you might speak some next week to, if it fits, to if Buddha spoke to, and if so, what ways to treat our bodies, or to to what we eat, or how we anything we do with our bodies. I believe that Buddhism condones drinking alcohol, but not using certain drugs, and that's one thing that I'm interested in.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. Jim?
Yeah, thank you again for this serious privilege. Impermanence and anatta. This is my big stumbling block. It seems like impermanence means to the content of consciousness, but that is always trafficky and fluxy. But I was sending pictures from a 50th high school reunion and to two girls from 6th grade, and I said, this is why I'm a bad Buddhist. I mean, exhibit A of continuity of personality. Are there limits of impermanence in Buddhism? Because I see a lot of stuff that's stays the same, like character and personality, and even though someone's story can change within them, they haven't broken a continuity with themselves.
Yeah, that's the crux.
Is impermanence permanent?
Depends on how you look at it. Hal?
Thanks again. I am continually coming back to the 5 hindrances, which stand in the way of making progress through this path. So I'd like to hear more about how they can be overcome in each instance. Your diagram of them especially was very, very helpful to me. But what stands out to me at this moment personally is kind of how sloth and torpors get in the way of action.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you, Hal. And what's your name? Brian.
Yeah, I have a question around how to think about maintaining equanimity in the face of other people's anger. So the force from outside can sometimes overwhelm your internal efforts.
No doubt. Big, big, big topic. Thank you, Brian, for that.
Thank you.
And what's your name? Clint.
Similar to that, just talk of anger. I know some paths seem to say that there's no situation where anger is an enlightened emotion. But there seem to be other paths, or other ways of seeing it, where anger is an appropriate emotion in certain times if expressed in an enlightened way. I mean, there's a lot of, we live in a very troubled time right now, and it's pretty hard for me to not want to do something that I feel is a step towards trying to get towards forces that are trying to get back to some kind of equilibrium. But there's so much injustice going on. I don't see how you can address the issue of injustice without feeling anger at the same time. I mean, maybe even seeing anger as a motivating force for you taking action. And so it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Clint. Great question. Okay, so just one final word. If anybody has any other thoughts or questions or comments that arises during the week, you can just contact Hal, or if you send them to Hal can just forward them to me. Or of course you can also grab me afterwards as well. All right. Well, thank you all for your kind attention.
Announcements? George, do you want to make your...
I'm George, I'm the host.
Hi, George.
My first time being the host. There's some treats out there. It's organic fruit from our beautiful state of California. And I'll be going around with Donna Bowl. Suggested donation is $10, which pays for all the things that we do, including renting this beautiful space and paying for our teachers and outreach to prisoners and Blocking Street dinner. And also, some people meet at the front door at about 12:30 to go out to lunch. If you're interested in that, check that out. And there's hot water, thanks to Grisha, came early. Have lots of tea, because both are filled. And wash out your cups and put them in the rack when you're done. Thank you.
There's also a sign-in sheet out there if you want to add your name to the mailing list.
Hi, my name is Michael. GBF is sponsoring a day-long retreat in March. It's Saturday, March 25th. It's happening right here in this room at the San Francisco Buddhist Center. There are flyers, green flyers that look like this, out on the table in front of the sofa. Heather Sunberg will be our teacher, and the theme is celebrating community, generosity, and gratitude. There's no charge for registration, and we are providing lunch. We do ask that if you participate, you contribute generously to the teacher with Donna. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll be out there. Thanks.
How do we register?
There's a link on here to register online.
Also on the table are free copies of Queer Dharma Volume 1 and Volume 2, so if you don't have that, grab it. Any other announcements? Okay. Grab it for a
GBF, dedication of merit. By the power and the truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.